Hi everyone. Today we got a little bit of a pullback. This trend line continues to be major overhead resistance. We talked about it on the Friday, we talked about it on the weekend video, and it continues to be a major point of rejection. So you can see here, hit it early in the session, big overthrow, big sell early, retest now. Looks like we're getting a little bit more selling here, weakness in the RSI, but let's take a look at the rest of the charts and see if they agree. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. In news today, we got China coming out and saying once again we are not talking to the United States, despite the fact that the US continues to claim that there are ongoing discussions. You can see here, Donald Trump and his aides suggest that trade negotiations are underway, but China has once again denied it. Kind of a weird back and forth we're getting from the administration and China. We're talking, but we're not talking, supposedly. I did hear earlier that the US is trying to put it in China's court, saying that they need to de-escalate, they need to meet our terms, at least to some extent. And China said that we are not going to do that whatsoever, so it seems like a bit of a Mexican standoff. Right now we're kind of pointing at each other with nobody backing down, and apparently we're not even talking according to China. So we'll see if that plays out or not. Right now the administration seems to think that a deal is possible, and markets are still high on that in my opinion. Moving over to fear and greed, we finished at a 37, even though the markets were down a little bit, or the S&Ps might have been flat a little, the Nasdaq was down, and we still stepped up on the indicator here to a 37. You can see it's been moving up here pretty consistently, but market momentum flattening out. Strength continues to curl up slightly, and breadth continues to move higher. This is 200-day breadth, so you can see the overall trend is still down. Is this going to be another peak? We'll take a look at it later. Put call ratio still very elevated, but downtrending. You also have the VIX at a super critical level right here at that 50 SMA. Is it going to hold there? And then you got safe haven demand, flat, and junk bonds still in greed hanging out there. Markets are still convinced we're not seeing major recessionary risks, at least for now. Moving over to the economic calendar, nothing for the Monday. Tomorrow we do get the JOLTS report as well as consumer confidence. I think these could have a pretty large impact, especially if we see consumer confidence pull back. It's already expected to be a pretty good pullback from the previous number, but we'll see if we even meet that number. Atlanta Fed GDP, continuing to watch that be quite negative, and then we roll right into ADP non-farms and core PCE data for the Wednesday. So lots of data this week, jobs numbers to close out the week, of course. Moving over to earnings, you got Welltower, they did okay. Waste Management doing not super great, but not terrible either. Domino's Pizza beating on the bottom line, missing on the top line. Interesting there. Consumer discretionary company for sure. Tomorrow we have Visa, Coca-Cola, AstraZeneca. Definitely going to be interesting. Honeywell, Starbucks, UPS. Again, another kind of bellwether for the economy. That's what I want to see tomorrow. And then we roll right into Meta, Microsoft, Qualcomm, Caterpillar for the Wednesday. Huge market caps over the next couple days. Moving over to the charts, looking at the S&Ps here, you can see we are right at these trend lines. We dipped below this kind of rising wedge pattern here. Momentum still hanging in there, RSI still hanging in there on the daily charts, but we are below that trend. You can see in the after hours we're down about 10 cents, and you can see it here on the hourly like we talked about. In the opener, we were flat to bearish, got that 55 EMA still hanging in there. RSI, we're just barely above it on the hourly chart, but this is clearly downtrending on strength. Can't seem to get above this trend line here. Let's go ahead and move that alert just above the trend line. Want to see what happens there. And then in terms of levels, 550.12 was my level, so we dipped below it, almost got to that 55 EMA, rallied back to it, and you can see in the after hours that's been a critical level already. We did close above it on the daily chart, tested it here after hours, getting a slight bounce. But realistically here, I just want to see if we can get above this trend line and looked for that push to kind of 559.76, or is this going to be a major rejection down to this kind of 200 area, down in the 535 area. Big risk. If that happens, you could see a move of around 3% in the next day or two, I think is a possibility. And then if we're looking at this on the daily chart, there is a much bigger downward potential to this trend line that would take us about another 4.5% lower to that next major trend line. So we'll see. I think this is a critical zone, wanting to see either a nice clean breakout or we're going to get consolidation and a rollover in my opinion. Looking at the Tasty charts here, you can see we did hold that 8 EMA as support. That's at 548.54. So that is holding in there. That is a relatively bullish indicator. We are still pulling back in time. You can see we were grinding along that upper ATR band. We did not hold that rally, so we're pulling back sideways. Are we going to do that a little bit more and then get an upswing, or is it going to consolidate here and pull back to the trailing stop closer to that 534.96 area? That makes more sense to me, and I think that fits better with the previous chart as well. Moving over to the Qs here, you can see we did get a negative day, down just 15 cents. We did hold the level. That was 471.06. We broke well below it and then ended up closing above it. Momentum still rolling to bullish. RSI still flat there. And you can see it here on the hourly chart. Really big move down, hit that key trend line. I sold here at the level break. I did close that position as we started to see this candle retrace. And then that ended up to have a pretty good amount of legs to the upside. We're still above the 471.06 level. I still think this is going to roll down and give us a bigger move down. Maybe this is the double top potentially. Do we go up and hit the trend line one more time? That's also a potential. We'll see. But right now, 471.63 is the support, and it did close above that in the after hours. Your next resistance is going to be 477.84. You can see the RSI did dip below the SMA over the last couple days, but now we're just slightly above it. If this does not roll back down, maybe there is a little bit more bullish legs up to that 477.84 level. Otherwise, you could be looking for that kind of double top into this maybe trend line here, which is about 2% lower, and then that next level about 2.8% lower, and then that 200 would be the more realistic zone. We'd be looking for a bigger support to come in around that area, around 453.97 if it's going to do it. Otherwise, this could absolutely roll through back down to these lower trends. If you extend that out, that would give you a price target back down around the kind of 442 area. Moving over to the Tasty charts, you can see very similar setup, still holding that 8 EMA as support. That is sitting at 469.75. Was kind of hoping we would get below the 8, but maybe hold that 144, maybe pull back to the 21. But so far, so good on the hold. Want to see it break a little bit more. I'm looking for a little bit more downside. Would like to see a nice retracement, but so far that has not happened. Your upper band target would be 477.25, pretty much in line with that 477 level we just talked about. If it pulls back, your trailing stop right now is at the 457.02 level. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow. The Russell managed to stay pretty positive on the session, up almost 0.5%. Still could not get above 195.15. If it does go there, I think we're going to see a nice push up to this 202 area, 203 potentially, and then you got that 55 EMA going to be overhead resistance, and then we'll see this roll back down. In my opinion, that's assuming that we get this kind of continuation breakout. Right now, I still think that that is a possibility on the Russell, but we're at this clear zone of resistance. We have not quite filled the gap, in my opinion, back to here, but the momentum is bullish. Interesting to see the Dow doing the same thing, gapping up. Dojing could not get above the next level, 404.47. After hours, basically flat. Momentum still bullish. RSI right at the 50 line. Is this the zone that rejects? We did the last time we got here. Waiting to see what happens now. Moving over to the Mag 7. The Mag 7 did not have a good day. It was down just a smidgen, hit that key level 273.41 like we thought that it would. And then it did reject from there, closing lower, after hours even a little bit lower. Obviously, the Mag 7 is going to be defined by earnings this week. We got Microsoft and Meta coming up, and we're waiting to see what these other companies say, with Apple and Amazon still hanging out there. And then NVDA, they have a weird reporting date way out in the future, but still waiting on Amazon and Apple. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. Apple was just barely positive, about 0.5%. Could not get to that 211.55 level. High of day was 211.50. You could call it a touch, but then we ended up a little bit below it there at 210.14. And then you can see I did like Microsoft going into the day, really strong outperformance over the Thursday, Friday, but could not get to that level, 394.22. If it can get above there, you're looking for a nice breakout move to that 413 area. If it continues to close below it, that is not so great, right? So this is the key zone right here on Microsoft. And really the same thesis here for Apple as well at that 211.55 level. You can see clean bottom, came to this level, rejected. We're testing it once again. If it rejects again, that's going to be quite bearish in my opinion. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA, you can see Tesla rallying once again up 0.33%, tested that 280 level, ended up holding there and pushing back to the 200 as major resistance, 291.45 there, and then you can see NVIDIA pulling back to the 106.64 level, bounced there, but it was still negative 2% on the day. Does not seem that we're going to get that stronger continuation up to the trend around the 114, 115 area. If this rolls back below 106, I think we could absolutely head to 95 or lower down into that 90.69 area. Moving over to staples and discretionary. Staples continues to sell here. That's 4 days in a row of selling, but really not a lot of movement, down only 1/3%. Momentum fading, RSI slightly bearish there. The support is still 80.54. We still closed above it. And then looking at discretionaries, you can see it's positive just barely, only 7 cents. It did retest 197.14, held above it on a closing basis. Momentum still slightly bullish, RSI still above the 50, but I still feel like we're going to pull back and retest the SMA and see what happens there. If we get a nice pullback to the 21, hold the 21 as support, that is going to be one of those all-in signals for me for that bigger continuation higher. Moving over to breadth, 20 and 50-day breadth. 20-day did manage to go a little bit higher into the 74 area, into this consolidation range. This is just about as high as it goes. Can it hang out here for a bit? Yes, you can see here we hung out here for about 2 weeks, and then we started to see a bigger breakdown from there. Is that going to happen again? Maybe, maybe not. You can see we've already kind of been here for a couple of days. At least 3, arguably 4. Are we going to hang out here for another couple days, maybe 1 more week? Certainly a possibility. Could it be less? Also possibly. So watching this as a critical pivot point. Want to see a nice little pullback, higher low setup, continuation higher. You can see that same follow through on 50-day. Pull back, hold the higher low, maybe at this kind of 22 area would be interesting. For now, we are still in this lower high setup, and I'm expecting at least 1 more sell. Again, do those have to happen at the same time? Not necessarily. Does price action say we're going to break down immediately? Also, no, not yet. Moving over to the dollar continues to look pretty terrible. You can see just about straight down bars. You had 1 slight retracement at the 12 o'clock candle. Trying to see a little bit of a retracement here, but that 99.83 level, look at it there. 4 days in a row of touches, continues to sell. We closed on the low before seeing just a slight retracement. Nobody seems to be as worried about the dollar as they were when it was kind of waterfalling off here, but this continues to look very, very bearish. If this continues to sell here, I think we could see a little bit of weakness in equities as well. So just watching the dollar continues to reject off of resistance. Moving over to bonds. Bonds continue to look really, really good. TLT breaking above the 89.16 level. J&K still hovering right above the level there. So bonds looking good. Nice breakout here. Expecting this to head to that 92.93 area. 92.82 is the actual level. Realistically, this could go as high as 94 potentially, so watching that. And then 96.50 is the next level there, so continues to be a buying opportunity anytime we get into this kind of 85 to 86 range. Moving over to the VIX, looking at this level here, we've been watching it for a long time. I just think we're going to get a hold here. I think this is going to be where we find support for the VIX. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish. Is this the point where we start to see it turn? You can see it was a bullish day, up about 1%. Is it going to hold here and continue? That remains to be seen, but for now, there is clearly some support here. Makes sense with the S&Ps and the Qs hitting those major resistances, which the market seems to be respecting, at least for now. Moving over to my accounts, I took that 1 bearish trade on the level break. I managed to take profits pretty close to the bottom, so that actually worked out really, really well. And then markets drifted higher from there, and I didn't do any other trades. So you can see my 1 round trip trade for that $200 profit. I sold calls right at that level, and then as they went down, I pulled in almost max profit. I think I sold them for $1.30 each, so that would have been a $2.60 max profit. Fortunately, I closed them pretty close to max profit, pretty close to the lows there, and then I would have been squeezed on that push higher had I held them. So pretty good trade there, getting close to 140,000. That's pretty cool as well. Overall, happy with the trades. Still looking for a slightly bearish bias. If we hold the levels, though, there's certainly potential for some upside, even though I think the risk is definitely to the downside. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of the markets today. Are we going to reject and go lower? Are the trade negotiations with China legit? Or is the White House just making it up? Let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.